Good morning. How is everybody doing today?
Whoa. Who's that guy with the handsome, sexy voice?
I don't know. I don't know what his name is.
Doesn't sound like my husband.
Yeah. We are back, finally.
We're back, and Thomas is fighting some sort of
After some 3 weeks or more, we recorded 3 episodes in a row. So we could be gone to Israel, but we're back. And
Yep. It was an amazing trip. A trip of a lifetime, life-changing, maybe.
Yeah.
But, man, we were ready to be home. I was ready to be home way before you were. Right?
Yeah, I could have stayed longer.
Oh, my goodness.
I could have stayed longer.
I definitely couldn't have stayed longer, and I was ready to go about 3 days before we left. I just missed my kids. You know, moms, you get it, right?
I was not looking forward to the flight home.
I didn't even care about that. I just wanted to get home.
And I still don't think I've recovered from the flight home.
No, jet lag is for real, you guys. Man. I mean, we've experienced it before. We've traveled to and from South Africa, and that was a 15-hour flight. This was 11 hours, but still, like, the jet lag, it's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, what are we doing today, babe?
We are at episode 156.
Have you missed podcasting?
I have, yeah.
I have
I'm
too.
really looking forward to today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Doing a little gaslighting.
Yes. Yes.
Talking about today.
We are talking about gaslighting, so join us for the conversation.
Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I think I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lysandra.
Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 156 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to define and dig into the destruction of gaslighting.
Okay.
Yeah, gaslighting. This is a term you hear.
Let's not jump right in.
Oh, you don't want to jump right in?
No.
What do we want to talk about before we jump in? I'm always excited to get to the content, but what do you want to say, babe?
Well, it's like a conversation. So we kind of get things, connect, we warm up, we spend some time with our listeners before we just jam them in the face with whatever topic we're talking about.
We are not going to jam you in the face with gaslighting. First of all, let's talk about where we were. We were in Israel and we missed podcasting. We were gone for...
So glad to be back.
2 weeks. We were gone for 2 weeks, but we missed, we had to record 3 episodes in advance so that you guys could keep having a podcast come out. So for us, we haven't recorded a podcast for 3 weeks and we've missed it. So we're glad to be back with you.
So come back from Israel and I already have a face for radio, but now I have the voice for radio.
Yes, you do.
So besides jet lag, I've got something going wrong in my throat. So
yeah,
going to forewarn you and apologize ahead of time. So
you don't have to apologize to me for that sexy deep voice, baby.
Oh boy. I feel like who's the guy in the songs?
The guy in the songs.
He's like, "Hey baby."
Oh, Barry White.
Yes.
Like,
"Hey baby, I love you."
Maybe we should come back later.
Back when they
podcast.
would do the wow, really? Okay. We will see you in
don't even say.
But yeah, back when they had the songs, a lot of the R&B songs, they would talk in the middle of the song and they'd have that guy with the deep voice.
Yeah.
So all of you who have come to love my very high-pitched voice, I want to apologize that you have to listen to this.
I think you sound great, love.
Yeah, but we're ready to go. This is one of my favorite things that we get to do every single week.
Me too.
So not sitting here with you at the table the last couple of weeks. I've really missed it, and am interested in learning more about this particular topic.
Yes. I was, I was educated through this episode, through preparing for this episode, because This gaslighting term is a term you hear more and more frequently in our culture. And in fact, I can remember the first time I heard it. Now it's been years ago, the first time I heard it. And I remember like smiling and nodding like I knew what it was. I had no idea. Do you remember the first time you heard the term gaslighting?
I do. And I actually thought that it had something to do with lighting a gas stove or like a gas water heater.
Okay.
Because we had a gas water heater. I grew up with a gas stove and burner, and there were times where we had to light it. What did you guys have?
We had an electric stove. That's why when I came to your house, I did not cook.
Oh,
I
that's
was,
right, because you don't like fire. That's right.
Yeah.
You're freaking out.
Like, I didn't even light candles. Now I've come to light candles and enjoy that, but I will never light a bonfire. I will not light things. Like, I don't
So the first time I heard it, I thought it had something to do with that, but I didn't know exactly what those two things would have in common.
Right. And
it turns out they have nothing in common.
Exactly. Maybe today you're hearing gaslighting for the first time, and this way you'll be ready and educated for when you hear it in conversation.
Or maybe you've heard it and just pretended you knew.
Like I did the first time?
Yeah, because none of us want to appear like we don't know everything.
I know, right? What is that about our pride? It's pride. But anyway, so today we're going to dig into it. We're going to find out what it is. But it is something that happens in a relationship. And as we get into this topic, you may realize as we define it and look into it that you know someone who does this, or I hate to say it, but you may recognize this behavior in your own character. And so we've got to watch for this stuff. It's so frequently that we want to nudge the person next to us and be like, oh, you do this. What about me? Let's turn it on ourselves, you guys. So as you're listening to this, start to really think about yourself as well. Is this anything that I'm doing in my behavior?
And that's the first place we ought to look. I talk about this all the time. For those of you that maybe are tuning in and this is your first episode and you don't really know us that well, my wife and I lead Beachside Community Church together. And so one of the things that I often do in my messages is talk about, hey, when we go to the Word of God, don't be thinking about what your spouse needs or what your neighbor needs. What is God trying to talk to you about?
Yes.
And we should have that same philosophy, whether we're reading the Bible, whether we're in some sort of book to help us learn and grow personally or professionally or relationally. And the same is true with the podcast. Our episodes are never designed to be a weapon that you can use in your family relationships. That's not the purpose. That's not helpful.
I'm glad you said that. That's good.
The point is I listen to the podcast so I can work on myself so that I can learn and grow and make my family relationships healthier.
Yes.
So,
well said, babe.
As we dive into this today, there's a great article online by Sarah Ann Durham and Kyle Young on Applied Psychology website. And we're going to refer to that a lot today. It was a helpful article for us and maybe a good resource for you if you want to study the topic further. So when we talk about gaslighting, it has nothing to do with your stove or your water heater. It's a type of emotional and psychological abuse, meaning that it's not a non-physical abuse in which the perpetrator intends to frighten, isolate, or control another person. So, most likely you know somebody who is going to in your life exhibit these type of behaviors. And the point of understanding this is to be able to recognize it right away so that you can then emotionally, psychologically prepare yourself and protect yourself. But simply put, gaslighting is when the perpetrator constantly and dishonestly disputes your own accounts of your experiences, causing a growing sense of self-doubt and isolation. And sometimes that is just manipulating, sometimes that's just outright lying. And the point is to try to control.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really kind of a scary form of abuse. And I really appreciated this article. It was actually sent to us by a friend who thought that it could be helpful, and it really has been helpful. One thing that they say in this article is that those who experience gaslighting often can't put their finger on exactly what's happening. So if you have somebody hitting you, you know you're being abused because they're hitting you.
Yeah.
You know, if you have somebody...
You might make excuses for why it's happening.
And that does happen.
But you know it's happening.
Right. If you have somebody who is calling you, you know, a fat, worthless piece of junk, you know, I am being emotionally abused, right? Well, hopefully you do. I hope that you know that. But this is very sneaky, manipulative, and it's difficult to articulate, even to yourself. You can't put your finger on what's happening.
Well, and if you think about the ramifications of this, the point of it is to get you so that you do not trust yourself. Then you have to solely rely upon the person who thinks logically, who quote unquote remembers everything correctly, right. And so it's very, very deceptive form of control and abuse.
Yes. Constant gaslighting makes a rational conversation about what's going on impossible to have. Instead, you come off looking confused or petty, and you have this fear that something is wrong with you, and it's reinforced. Yep, something's definitely wrong with me. I don't remember right. I am crazy, whatever it may be.
Now, when we talk about the word gaslighting, where it originated from, it came from a 1940s movie.
Yes, and I'm so mad because I was going to have us watch this movie before this podcast, and we didn't get around to it, and I'm so mad. But it's on our list. We've got to watch this movie. Can I get you to watch a 1940s movie?
I'm not sure.
It's definitely going to be black and white.
If it was before the episode came out, most probably was a good chance. But now that it's afterward, I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
Have you seen it?
No, but I know you're about to describe it, but
it's called Gaslight the name of the movie.
Right. And the what you're about to describe sounds familiar to me. Like, I have a picture in my mind because I think in pictures, and I feel like I can see the movie in my mind, which makes me wonder if I've watched it, but I'd need to pull it up and see it.
Maybe you're just not remembering correctly.
Okay. Stop it. All right, go ahead. Tell us about the movie, babe.
But in it, a charming man marries a woman, Paula. He then deliberately and systematically sets out to convince her that she's insane. Sounds
familiar. I don't know. I think I'm insane. I'm not sure if it's because I am insane or because you're making me feel this way. I don't know. You are a charming man.
A charming man, yes, I am.
With a deep, sexy voice.
Got that deep voice going on. Hey, baby, I think you're crazy.
Okay, whatever you say. I don't think we're supposed to be making light of gaslighting. We may be off the rails here.
Probably.
Okay.
We could do that. We're in a very healthy relationship. So
yes.
His end goal, though, is to have her institutionalized so that he can find the hidden stash of rubies he believes is in her home. Now, I know you don't have rubies in the house.
No, so we're good.
He starts off by disputing small, insignificant happenings, then advances to bigger scenarios, thereby reinforcing her growing belief that she's losing her mind. Okay. So it does sound like a very interesting movie, and you can see how that movie became the term that people use for that kind of psychological control.
Right. And according to the article by Applied Psychology, gaslighting could be divided into 4 different types. I had no idea that this was that there were 4 parts to it until preparing for this episode. So here are the 4 parts: outright lying, manipulation of reality, scapegoating, and coercion. Often the experience is a combination of these 4 types and not just limited to one of them. Gaslighting often happens over a period of time, with the abuser discreetly victimizing someone in a disguised or passive manner, chipping away at one's confidence and one's sense of self. So we're going to look deeper into each of these types, these 4 different types. But I have to say, like, this is terrifying. This would be so horrible. And I it's not just men that would do this to women. Women could easily do this to men as well. So this is just something that I think it's good that people are being aware of, and hopefully even recognizing in themselves if they have any of these character traits.
Well, and here's one of the things I want to say too, is before we dive into the 4 and kind of go into them a little bit more. When we talk about the abuse, it is an ongoing situation that's happening over an extended period of time. We're not talking about little things that happen here or there.
Okay.
So in relationships, because we're flawed, because we're human, there's going to be times, I'm not saying there should be, but it happens, right? Because they're relationships. There's going to be times where your spouse may outright lie to you.
Right.
We're not saying that is a form of abuse.
Right.
When it's like one time here, one time there.
It's wrong, but it's not abuse.
Correct. You know, there's going to be times, we all do this, where we manipulate reality.
Yes.
Because we want whatever the side that we're on, we want it to sound like the best. So we may distort things.
Absolutely.
That happens once or twice. We're not saying that's abuse.
That happens in healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Because you've got 2 flawed individuals who married each other.
So scapegoating, coercion, those sorts of things. What we're talking about is an ongoing pattern of behavior.
Yes.
So if you have a pattern of behavior of just outright lying, okay, that is a huge problem that needs to be dealt with.
Yes.
Now, the scripture is very clear that we should always speak truth to each other, that we're to put away lying as Christians. So lying is always wrong. If it's an ongoing pattern of behavior, that is a more significant issue that you need to go and get counseling and get those things taken care of. And the same is true with all 4 of these types.
Right.
So if it's a one-time or every once in a while event, yes, you need to deal with it. But if it's ongoing behavior, that's going to require some counseling and some other issues to work through.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just start off with the outright lies. And the purpose of lying here is to hide bad behaviors from a partner. So whatever it is you've got going on behind the scenes that you don't want your partner to know about, you're lying to cover your tracks for that. And the lies sow deep feelings of mistrust and doubt in the relationships. And one of the many problems with someone who lies is that they project what they are doing onto others, claiming that they're not lying, but instead everyone else is lying. You know, it's not me. You have the issue, or this person has the issue. Mm-hmm. It's not me. There's some other reason behind whatever the thoughts or feelings of mistrust you have towards me.
Right.
Like, that's on you. And often what happens is they go to the opposite extreme, where maybe you've even caught them in something, or you've got these feelings like, I feel like this is what happened, but they're saying this. I feel like they're lying to me. And if you approach it, they come over the top that, no, you're the one at fault for having these feelings of mistrust towards me.
Right. Right. How could you not trust me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there very few of us know someone who has the audacity to double down on their own lies. And so instead of questioning their integrity further, we just believe them.
Right, because who would do that? Who would double down on their lies? But you think about it, if you've got somebody who is having an affair, an extramarital affair, they're going to be lying constantly, right? You have to lie about where you are, what you're doing every single time you meet up.
What you spent the money on.
Yes, yeah. The text that came through the phone. Yeah, you're lying absolutely constantly. And there are going to be times when you're caught in that lie, and what do? You got to double down. You got to lie again. You got to lie about the lie. You got to, when someone says, I saw your husband over there, who is that? Oh, then you're lying about that person, and it's just a bunch of lies, and what a tangled web we weave, right? So this is really dangerous behavior. And if this is something ongoing, it really becomes a form of abuse. And pretty soon you question your own ability to see truth or falsehood.
Well, it's like, then you start to feel like, man, I'm a horrible person because I don't trust my spouse at all. What is it that's inside of me that is making me do that?
And here's what I think that person is going to hear from their spouse. You're paranoid.
Yeah.
You're paranoid. You always think I'm lying. You're paranoid. And they do that because they're projecting that onto you, trying to make you doubt your own interpretation of truth. When you see what you know is true, like, and I think this happens a lot of times with people once they get out of an abusive relationship, they look back and they're like, how did I believe that lie? How did I believe it? It's because they are cunning. They are charming. They know how to twist things. They are very good at this. And sometimes they even plan and prep for how they are going to deceive you.
Well, and most people, they want to believe the best about people.
Yes.
You know, we want to believe the best about them. So that for most of us is our default.
Right.
So when you have somebody who is doubling down, is over the top demonstrative that they are telling the truth, even though you feel like they're not, our default is, okay, maybe they are telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go on to the second form of gaslighting, manipulation of reality. Honestly, this one kind of scares me. Like, this would be terrifying to live in this world. So here's what it is. When someone constantly denies your experience or perceptions, you start to question what and how you remember something. You start to doubt your own judgment, as well as your memory of events or what was said. Over time, this erodes your self-esteem and ultimately your mental well-being. Eventually, even if you have proof that you are right, you still doubt yourself as a reliable witness to your own reality. And the result is an increasing acceptance of the gaslighter's description of events and continuous questioning of your own memory, interpretations, and perceptions. They literally strip you of your ability to see reality. That is terrifying to me.
Yeah. And once again, as I mentioned a little bit ago, this is an ongoing pattern.
Yes.
So I think about our own relationship. There are times Lysandra and I remember things differently.
Well, I mean, I think almost every time we remember things differently to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We're not like completely, coming from different worlds, but almost every time it's like, oh, I thought it was like this, simple things.
Yeah. But what I want to say is just because you and your spouse remember something differently, don't let your mind automatically jump to, oh, they're gaslighting me. They're trying to manipulate my reality.
Yes.
We don't want to jump to that extreme. That is super harmful to your relationship.
Right.
But if it's an ongoing pattern, we want to recognize, and you can tell the difference between, hey, on a vacation, we don't remember certain things exactly the same versus something that is actually affecting your relationship.
Right.
So those are very different things.
Right. And I think it's so dangerous. The more educated we all become in psychology and all of these things, like we all can Google whatever we want to Google and find out information on things.
WebMD.
Yes.
Find out I'm dying 3 ways to Sunday.
Yes. But I think sometimes that education in a way can be dangerous in the wrong hands, because then what we can do is we can start throwing around these terms and start accusing our spouse of doing this and doing that and doing this. And it's like, no, you're just having a regular, normal fight. Like you're just fighting.
Yeah.
Nobody's abusing anybody. You're both fighting. So I think that can be kind of a dangerous thing too.
And the way that I kind of think of that is a psychological hypochondriac.
Nice. Are you coining that term?
I should.
I think it's yours, babe.
Yeah.
That's good.
Where we're trying to make things out to be something that they're actually not. It's just, hey, we're having a disagreement, or we just aren't remembering exactly the same. One of us is remembering maybe more correct than the other, but it's not like I'm trying to manipulate your reality.
Yes.
It's just, this is honestly the way that I remember it.
Yeah.
And there's no motive behind it. I'm not trying to manipulate at all.
And we are 150% pro therapy.
Oh, definitely.
We are pro therapy. Go get help. Go seek professionals. Get counseling all the time. You hear that on our podcast. But beware that you don't take that therapy and that education you're getting in therapy and start throwing around terms at your spouse and using your therapy as a weapon. That's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. But I was just on a phone call yesterday with a pastor in another place, and he just needed somebody to talk to and kind of get a sort of sanity check and everything else about his goal and direction in life and those sorts of things. And one of the things that I mentioned to him was, hey, have you gone to see a counselor about this topic here? And because we do believe in getting professional counseling, somebody who is an expert in that field or whatever. And so even if it's something like this, if you've suffered from this, you need a professional to be able to talk and work your way through these things to navigate to a healthy place. So we're not jumping the other way saying, oh, psychology is evil. No, we don't think that at all. We think it's very helpful and very healthy to go get counseling. But that's the manipulation of reality. So, and third thing that is talked about here is scapegoating. And basically that is assigning blame to someone else. And that has to do... That term actually has to do with back in the Old Testament practice, where they would have a scapegoat that they would go and they would set that scapegoat free. Very interesting where that term actually comes from. A
literal goat.
Yes, a very literal goat that they would
not metaphorical.
They would set free. But yeah, sorry, when I saw that, I kind of my pastor brain.
Did you want to start?
My pastor brain jumped off. Yeah. So, but basically it's someone assigning blame to someone else. And by doing this, they're taking responsibility and attention away from themselves, which is the goal, right? We want to distract and it reminds me, we were watching an episode of a TV show last night on Siegfried and Roy.
Oh,
the illusionist, that was right?
Really interesting.
And when they're doing the illusion, they don't want you to focus over here. Hey, we got to get you to focus in this other direction. And that's exactly the idea behind this. So the result is the accused, the scapegoat, takes responsibility for things that aren't their fault. And the abuser feels that their actions are justified and their bad behaviors are thereby exonerated. Additionally, by focusing your attention on defending yourself, they're distracting you from seeing their behavior for what it is and unacceptable. And so the goal is to get you to stop looking at them and start to look at yourself as the problem.
And I feel like I don't want to beat a dead horse or anything, but this, to a certain extent, the blame game is how people fight naturally. So there can be healthy marriages where nobody's being abused and the blame game is happening. So understand that if this happens in an argument, don't think immediately like, I'm being abused. Okay. That may not be the case. We're talking about continuous patterns of behavior over years.
Yeah, I will say that if your default in noticing anything is I'm being abused, you probably do need to see some counseling.
Yep, there's something behind that.
Because that's not a healthy view of life or relationships.
Right. And I know Thomas and I really, truly, we can say we have a very healthy relationship.
Read the end of the book, not the beginning. If you believe that.
Right. We do have a very healthy relationship. Do we ever blame each other for stuff? Of course we do.
Totally.
When we have a disagreement, we have become... What?
I was just going to say...
He's looking at me.
If something is missing of mine, if it's not in the correct spot, I automatically am like, Lysandra, where'd you move it to?
What'd you do with it?
Because, you like to clean things, you like to organize things, so...
Always, constantly.
But it's not always correct. It's not always that Lysandra moved it. Sometimes it's I didn't put it back where I should have.
Right. And usually my immediate response is, you never put anything away. I have no idea where you put your thing. It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So then here we are, like, going back and forth. So in a very healthy relationship, you can try to be blaming each other because you want to win the argument, right? It's not really a good thing to do. We try not to do that.
Yeah.
But are we human? Absolutely. Do we sometimes do this? Yes. And then we'll talk about it and be like, okay, there's some blaming happening here. Like, let's get through this.
Or there's an apology where, okay, I accused you of this. I blamed you for this, which wasn't true. I'm sorry for doing that.
Right. So that's not abuse. That's just being human, okay, and making some mistakes. But when it's this pattern of I'm always wrong, he's always right, he is always making it my fault. Okay, when this happens, it often also means that one person is constantly being required to improve themselves. So now they've always got to improve. I've got to do better because I'm the problem here. While at the same time, they're being trapped in a cycle of defending their integrity. And this often results in deep-rooted feelings of shame. And that's hard to get over. And there again, if this has been something that's happened to you in your past, whether from a parent-child relationship, a friendship, a family member, or a spouse, you may need to get counseling to help you weed through all of that and understand that you're not always to blame and to get past those feelings of shame.
And I even feel stronger than you may. I feel like you do.
Okay.
You do need to get some counseling to get over that because your whole framework for how you look at yourself has been changed.
Yeah.
And so in order to rebuild the proper framework, most likely you need somebody to help walk you through that rebuilding process.
Right.
And then the last thing we see here is coercion. And it ranges from convincing someone by using charm or seeming to be very caring. It can also be exerting pressure or being emotionally and or verbally manipulative in order to get one's way.
So kind of two extremes there.
Yeah. So whether it could be like tears.
I put those in the holster frequently.
Could be batting those long, beautiful eyelashes.
I don't actually cry on purpose to manipulate. I just cry a lot. I just want to make that clear to you, love.
But it could be things like sex or... shouting, these different things that we use to manipulate.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, I shut down when I hear shouting or anything like that. Like I'll pretty much just fold.
Yeah.
If it's shouting, I'm done. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. And so if we're not in a healthy relationship, me understanding that, I know exactly how to shut Lysandra down. And so you understand, and we talked about this.
So you don't do that. The end of that is that he doesn't do it because we're in a healthy relationship.
And so we talk about this all the time. The people that know you best can hurt you the worst. Mm-hmm. And so having that information about your spouse, you're entrusted with that. I'm entrusted with that. And I need to safeguard that. And so we don't bring out these weapons of manipulation. Why? Because that's not good for our relationship. Mm-hmm. And often the gaslighter uses something important or close to your heart as ammunition. And then on the opposite end, from charming, being outright violent towards your spouse or bullying them.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we take this idea of, I'm being bullied. I'm being bullied in my marriage. I feel like sometimes sometimes that can be thrown around as well. When you're in a marriage, both parties, you and your spouse, are both trying to get your own way naturally. That's just who we are. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. You are trying to get your way. He's trying to get his on everything. What you have for dinner, where you go, what time you leave the house to get to an event, like literally everything. Okay. Because you have your own ideas. He has his. And just because you have discussions about this, and sometimes he comes out the winner and you leave when he thinks it's the best time to leave, and other times maybe you leave when you think it's best to leave, it doesn't mean anybody's being bullied. It's you discussing and coming to a hopefully compromise. All right.
Yeah.
And so if it's not like one spouse is always, always, always winning, then nobody's being bullying.
Right, exactly.
Nobody's being bullied. You're just having conversations and trying to come to an outcome. So I did want to kind of point that out. Because like we've talked about, I feel like throughout this entire episode, a lot of times people can start ringing the abuse bell when it's just normal relationship stuff.
Sure.
Okay, so we've gotten through all the gaslighting. We've talked about the 4 different types. We've talked pretty in depth about it, I feel like. And so what we want to get to understand here, bottom line, is these behaviors are not okay. All right, if this is a pattern in your marriage, it is not okay. If you are doing this, any of those 4 things, or portions of all of them, it is not okay for you to be doing that. You need to stop. You need help to stop, probably, because if you've been doing this and this is a pattern, then it's something that you're going to need help to stop. Habits are not easy to break. If your spouse is doing these things to you, it's not okay. It has to be addressed. Gaslighting should not be allowed to continue. And if you're married to someone who demonstrates these behaviors, we want to give you a step you can take. What do you do? Maybe you're like, It's me. My husband does this to me. My wife, this is what she's doing. I know that she's twisting reality. She's lying to me, whatever it may be. Okay, so we're going to give you a step. What do you do? The first thing we recommend to you is that you confront your spouse in a calm and loving way. You're going to let them know that you've become aware of this behavior and you're not okay of this continuing any longer.
Calm and loving are the key words.
Yes. Speaking the truth in love is what the scripture says. And so let's give a quick example. If Thomas is distorting my reality.
Or if Lysandra is using those sweet curves to manipulate me.
Okay, what are you going to say to me?
Thank you. No.
You are not helpful for anybody, babe. So you're going to say something like, Thomas, I love you, and I'm thankful that we are married. I'm glad I'm married to you, but I've become aware that there are times that you're distorting my reality, and I know that I was not wrong about the way that I saw that situation yesterday, but you twisted it to make me wrong, and I know that you're doing this, and I'm asking you to stop. So basically, what you're doing is you're giving your spouse the opportunity to change. If this is a pattern that's happened for years and years, let me just say, most likely, it's not going to work. Right. But you're going to give them the chance.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
Most likely, they're going to come back with, I did not, and they're going to try to prove to you that you were wrong in your reality. Okay.
And they're going to come even harder over the top. Yeah.
Right. But still, it's biblical for you to first go to them. That's biblical. All right. Then you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt too, that maybe they don't know they're doing this. I absolutely have had times in my life where I didn't realize that I was doing something in our marriage, where I didn't realize it. And then when it comes to your attention, you're like,
treating me like the dog and like giving me little treats to like train me in certain things.
Yeah, but I still do that. I'm not apologizing for that.
Yeah.
Because it worked. Look at that good boy that I created. I'm so sorry. I feel like that was really wrong. I want to apologize.
This is what I have to deal with.
Whatever, you get treats. You should be happy. Okay, but listen to what 1 Corinthians 13:7 says. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And the point that I want to kind of focus in here on this portion is believes all things. You're going to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt that believes all things. You're going to give them the chance to maybe say, I didn't know I was doing this. Maybe they don't realize they're doing that. Maybe over the years, they got into a bad behavior rut. It started simple and then it just kept going. This can happen. And I know I've caught myself in a situation where I'm like, oh man, I keep snapping at Thomas. Like I'm starting to talk to him in a way that's not appropriate. And you don't really catch it until it becomes a pattern. It becomes a habit. And even when this did happen in my case, like I've had to ask Thomas for forgiveness and start over with the help of the Holy Spirit to change my behavior so that I could speak to him in a loving and kind way. And maybe that's what's happened with your spouse. You're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because you love them.
Or it could be the fact that this is how they're their home was growing up. So this is how they've learned to deal with and act in relationships.
Right.
And so once again, it's not an excuse, because we all have to take ownership of our own behaviors, but at least it helps me to understand who they are and how they've got to what they are.
And rather than being the enemy and the opponent, you're going to come alongside them and help them to learn that behavior is not okay, and to help them change that behavior and walk with them through it. And you're going to give them grace and mercy and forgiveness.
So we start by approaching our spouse about the gaslighting behaviors. That's step one. And we see this pattern laid out for us in Matthew 18. We are unapologetically Christian, and we try to live our lives by the principles that we find in the Word of God and that Jesus exemplified for us. So in Matthew 18, as Jesus is having a conversation, he says this in verse 15, if your brother sins against you, so maybe you're unfamiliar with that word sin. This is just the idea of wronged us. So if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. So as Lysandra's already mentioned, you go to your spouse and just say, hey, this happened. This is how you responded. This is reality, right? I see the behavior. I recognize it, and in a kind and loving way, I'm approaching you about it. And it says, Jesus says, if he listens to you, you've gained your brother. In other words, that relationship is restored. It's back whole again. And then it says, but if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So you've got 2 or 3 people that they've seen the behavior. Now, for somebody who is very, very manipulative, they are good at managing the way that people view them.
Yep.
And so finding somebody else who sees and recognizes the behavior can be challenging. But you take somebody along who, hey, they see it, they recognize it. All right? And whether that's your pastor, whether that's somebody else who's a counselor or somebody who understands what's happening. And then it says, if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. Now, he's speaking to Christians here, and he's talking about the way that a church handles things. But we can take these principles and apply them to our personal relationship, even if it's not church-related at all, and talks about the way to deal with it. But it starts with just you, and hopefully that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
Hopefully there's a recognizing and apologizing and restoring the relationship. If not, then we start to gather people who witnesses to help confirm, no, listen, this is the truth. Mm-hmm. This behavior cannot go on long enough. And there's a great book that both Lysandra and I have read. It's called Enough is Enough by Dr. David Clark. And he in the book, he outlines what to do if your spouse is refusing to change or work on their abusive behavior. So you start by getting the second person involved. You talk to your pastor. You go to a counselor. You go to a trusted friend. Get someone else to help you confront your spouse. And then if these steps won't work, you can move to a separation while giving your spouse an opportunity to change. And he highlights in there a plan to walk through for each of those steps, including how to get out of that situation very specifically, things to think about and plan for ahead of time before you go, depending on the abuse in the situation. Mm-hmm. So great book if you're struggling in your relationship and whether it's an ongoing pattern of gaslighting and that psychological and emotional abuse or physical abuse, he really gives a great plan for how to follow through in that.
Right. And that may be you. Maybe you need to make a plan to get out of the abuse. And this book will break it down and help you step by step get to safety.
And one of the things I love about Dr. Clark here is his main goal and first goal is the restoration of the relationship, of change in the abuser's life and heart.
Yes, because I think that's another thing that we maybe need to comment on about therapy and counselors, because there are so many varieties out there. If you have a counselor who's right away talking divorce, like, well, I'm hearing what's happening. You just got to leave it. It's divorce. That's not a great counselor. First of all, let's see if we can work on this. Let's see if we can come to a resolution. Let's see if the abuser is willing to change. Now, if it is a really bad situation of abuse, my advice is get out of the abuse so you're not living there anymore. That doesn't mean you have to divorce. This is the opportunity for your spouse to change. And I like that about David Clark's book as well.
Yes.
And this book will break it down step by step how to get to safety, which is so good. Because I think a lot of people stay in abusive relationships because they don't know how to get out. And even if someone would have come to me and said, how do I get out of this? I really didn't have a great plan for them. I could give them a few ideas.
Yeah.
But this book has really helped me.
And I'll post a link to the book in our Facebook group so that you don't have to try to remember it. You can just go in the Facebook group and I'll post it in there. If you're not already in the group, now's a great time to jump in and join the conversation, and we'll have that resource there for you to look at for yourself. Put an Amazon link, so if you want to check it out, I think it's on Audible as well. Maybe you're not reading books is not your thing, but you can listen on a walk or a jog or whatever, car ride. It's a great resource, and we'll make sure you can very easily find it.
Right. And hopefully it won't get to the point where you're getting out of the home and getting out of the relationship, because the goal is to get to the point of resolution before things get ugly. So let's say when you do confront your spouse and they hear you and they accept what you're saying and they have a desire to change. In that case, you can just help them with it by maybe pointing out gently when they are slipping back into that bad behavior. So if you're having a disagreement and they say, no way, that's not what happened, you're crazy. You can calmly and gently are keywords here, remind them, honey, remember you said you didn't want to treat me this way anymore. You told me you weren't going to call me crazy. Would you please rephrase what you just said?
Yeah, and I like that.
So you're gonna work with them on changing the behavior. This does not mean like you're the good guy, they're the bad guy, and you're always making them the bad guy. You're just gently and kindly reminding them that they are working on changing.
Right, and we are a team working towards a healthy relationship.
Right.
Towards a better relationship with each other. And that should always be the goal, no matter
Yes.
how great your relationship is, no matter how long you've been married. Lysandra and I have been married for 20 years. We've been together like 27 years. Our relationship is fantastic. We're constantly working to try to make it better.
Yeah. And the truth is that these podcast episodes help our marriage because we're constantly re-examining our own marriage, learning and growing together.
So we're 156 in, and every episode has been helpful for us.
Yeah.
We hope it's been helpful for you.
Amen.
But the goal here is by gently pointing out the behavior, you help them to be more aware of it, and you give them an opportunity to change what they say and do into more healthy words and behaviors. Mm-hmm. And reality is that we all treat each other in unhealthy ways sometimes. Mm-hmm. And don't you want the opportunity to make it right?
I do.
I do also. Don't you want to be gently reminded if you slip up and say something that you shouldn't? Mm-hmm. And so Lysandra mentioned sometimes she'll snap at me. Well, I could then just snap back, mm-hmm. right? But that's not a healthy thing to do. That's not going to help our relationship. And so there are times where I say, listen, I would appreciate you not talking to me that way. Mm-hmm. Whatever the situation was doesn't call for that type of speech. It's not helpful. Mm-hmm. And just like that, like not angry, not upset, very calm.
Yep.
Just saying, hey, please don't talk to me like that.
And I want him to do that. And when he does, then I immediately say, I'm sorry. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at whatever, the situation. I'm frustrated with the situation. And I shouldn't be talking to you that way. I'm sorry. And then I change my behavior, but I need that gentle reminder.
Well, and the Word of God tells us that a soft answer turns anger away. Mm-hmm. And so by speaking calmly, I'm not escalating the situation. You know, I'm trying to help diffuse it while giving them an opportunity to change. Yeah. So the implied answer for all these things is yes. We all want that gentle truth. So give that same courtesy to your spouse. And so we want to have a family meeting tonight, and just want to sit down with you and your spouse and have a conversation about gaslighting, and just talk about these different things. And this is where we're coming with an open heart. We want to grow in our relationship. And so think about these 4 different areas. Hey, do you ever feel like there's times where I'm just outright lying? Where I'm outright just, and having that conversation between you and your spouse. Do you ever feel like I'm using coercion, where I'm trying to manipulate you, your perception of reality or whatever else? And you're going through these 4 things and just opening up your life and your relationship and having an honest conversation about it. And it's interesting, the different things that you'll learn, because most likely there are some things that we're doing that we don't even know we're doing. Like, I don't even recognize. I kind of think of it, and I use the illustration. I'm a public speaker in a lot of different ways, whether it's the podcast or preaching on Sundays and other times or whatever. In public speaking, most public speakers have junk clutter words that get in there, and you don't even realize it. And one of the things that I used to say all the time is, And I learned that my pastor growing up would say, all the time. I just kind of picked that up, didn't realize I was saying it until Lysandra brought it to my attention. And I've asked her to kind of let me know when these words come in. And it's funny because sometimes she's just like, you said whatever the word is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time.
Like today. I don't even know where it came from, but that was your word of the day. So, but sometimes those behaviors come and we don't even recognize how we're manipulating. How we are using our physical appeal. I think ladies are better at that.
Coercion.
To manipulate to get your spouse to do something. Even the little things, like that is setting a pattern that can be very dangerous if you continue down that road. And we kind of joke about that a little bit, but in reality, if that goes unchecked, it can lead to other things. And so there may be things that you're doing that I'm doing that we don't even realize. And this is a great opportunity to get those things out into the light so we can all learn and grow ourselves, which will help our relationship as a whole.
Thank you, friends, for joining us today. And listen, we really hope that this episode on gaslighting has been educational and informative. If it has, please just share this on social media. I don't know when the last time was that you shared an episode, but that would be helpful to us if you would share that on social media.
And I want to just do this. I want you to stop whatever you're doing right now and go to wherever you listen to your podcasts and just leave a review. Those reviews are so helpful to us. And it's helpful so that other people can more easily find the content and helpful information that we're providing. So just by doing something simple as leaving a review could be the help that some other family finds us and gets help for their relationship.
Yeah,
so if you could just leave us a review, that'd be so helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you guys.
To find more content information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss how to have relevant Bible studies with your children. I love this because this was a question from one of our listeners that I got personally, and I wanted to create a podcast episode out there because maybe there are other parents asking the same question. So how do we turn everyday situations into an opportunity to teach them what the Bible says about what's actually going on in their lives?
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. We're out of sync there a little bit. It's been a few weeks.
Because you always high five with this hand. Try again.
Oh.
That's why. See? Duh.
There we go.
My goodness. You don't.
Well, we take a couple weeks off and I forget how to high five.
You don't know what you're doing. It's
yeah.
okay.
So,
Thanks for joining us, though, you guys, on YouTube. We appreciate it. Let us know if maybe this episode has been helpful to you, or maybe you know someone, or you've maybe seen this behavior in yourself. Let us know in the comments what's been helpful to you.
Yeah, share your experiences. What you have to say can help somebody else.
Yep.
So you just drop that in the comments, and we'll continue that conversation there. With that, we want to encourage you to have a great week.